Romania and thus Toma are likely out of the Olympics. Lasha Talakhadze returns with some heavy squats and Hsing-Chun sort of snatches a PR. Hello and welcome back to this week's episode of the Weightlifting House News Show, the only weightlifting news show in the world. Now, the biggest story of the week, as reported on Inside the Games by Brian Oliver, is all to do with Romania and the fact that probably they are no longer going to the Olympics. Now, Romania is likely going to be joining countries like Egypt, Malaysia and Thailand as countries who will no longer be allowed to compete at the Olympic Games this year, having had an additional 2 doping violations from the London 2012 Olympic Games, which means that added to their already pretty vast doping history, they now surpass the number required for being banned as a country outright from the sport of weightlifting at the Olympics. Now, because they've already received so many bans, they were already down to just sending 1 male and 1 female lifter. Now, I think maybe this time last year you might have thought that it would be someone like Nikolai Onika from the men and Toma from the women, but of course Nikolai Onika was then popped, and so there wasn't really a top Romanian male lifter to fill his spot. And so when they just received these other 2 pops, essentially Romania was trying to slow down the court system to try and get these 2 athletes banned after the Olympics, thus keeping their quota to limit them only to sending 1 male and 1 female lifter rather than wiping them entirely from the Olympic Games. However, it just went through, and so it doesn't look like that's going to happen for them. And Romania really has a pretty bad history of doping as a country. All 4 of their London 2012 Olympians were popped for stanozolol. Of course, Gabriel Sincrain has been popped twice, most recently after his bronze level performance in 2016. And even Toma received a 2-year ban back in 2014, also for stanozolol, aged just 19. Now, this pretty corrupt country in weightlifting is headed up by Nicu Vlad, the Romanian weightlifting president, who holds the record for the heaviest over double body weight snatch of all time, 200.5 kilos in the 100 kilo class. And of course, this was back in the 80s. And as one of the IWF board members who has been pushing some pretty regressive politics within the sport and promoting a bit of a culture that I suppose could lead to further doping and the removal of the sport essentially from the Olympics, his position as joint delegate for the Olympic Games is likely to be removed at this point, which I can't say would actually be a bad thing for the sport, probably the ideal situation right now. And so if we can all as a sport hold our breaths until April when the new IWF constitution comes into play and just pray that the IOC turns their heads until that point also, weightlifting may survive by the skin of its teeth to lift another day. Now, before we get into the big lifts from this week, and I'll only hold you here for 15-20 seconds, just a quick reminder, the prices for coaches only goes up from $149 up to $199 on Saturday, the 6th of February, so just in a couple of days from now. So if you want to go and you want to get the best price, now is the time. The link is down below. Coaches only will be the best weekend ever possible for weightlifting coaches. Extremely excited for it, and you'll be able to join a bunch of other eager, like-minded, keen-to-learn coaches who will be turning up to learn from the sport's greatest. So I just got word that the Taiwanese world champion, world record holder, Hsing-Chun, just competed in a national competition. Now, due to COVID, only athletes and coaches were allowed in, and so there wasn't really even any media. Fortunately, I was able to get the footage. So a huge thank you to Eric Chen. That's Eric Chen48 on Instagram. He's actually been on the People's Lift before, for being able to get the footage and send them to me so that we can all see this now. So I suppose in some ways it was a good and a bad meet for Hsing-Chun. She did compete at 64, which is a weight category she's competed in a few times recently, just to avoid the cut back down to 59 kilos. Of course, she won't actually be competing at 64 at the Olympics. Deng Wei, the only female weightlifter in the world with more Roby points than her, is in that 64 kilo class, so she'd be wise to stay in the 59s. But she ended up taking 3 attempts in the snatch, as you'd imagine. 105, the heaviest opener we've ever seen from her, which she made. 107, equaling the world record. And then 110 with a little bit of a press out. Well, not even so much a little bit. Quite an obvious press out, the kind of press out that is never going to get a white light from any judge. unless they were staring deliberately at the other elbow without looking anywhere else at the lifter. But even so, we've never seen her, training make 110 kilos before in the snatch, so that is exciting for her. Now, of course, we've seen Hsing-Chun hit 105 back in Ashgabat, 106 in Thailand. She hit 107 at the Summer Universiade in 2017 in Taiwan. And so this 107 that she just hit in this competition looked pretty easy. That's great. And then, of course, the 110, very nice also. Things went a little bit weird in the clean and jerk. She opened at 130, which is pretty standard for her, I'd say. Assuming we don't go as far back as 2011, she tends to open anywhere between 127 and 133, so that's pretty normal. Legs looked a little bit tired, went to 133 on a second attempt, and again, I'd say, not that this looked like a true max, but she looked much more fatigued than she normally would. Standing up that weight looked significantly more difficult than, let's say, the 133, 37, or 140 that she hit at the World Championships last year, weighing a little bit less. And so she ended up passing on her third attempt. So she ends up with 107, 133. That's a 240 kilo total. But that is a total that has been beaten in that weight class by a couple of other lifters. Chen Guiming from China, that's not really a problem because she won't be selected for the Olympics. But then there's Cho Sim from North Korea, who totaled 245 kilos at the World Championships in 2019. Admittedly, Hsing-Chun did beat her with 246, but it goes to show that unless she has one of those incredible 246 type days, the second best total she's ever had behind 249 from the Summer Universiade in 2017, I'm not necessarily sure that she's guaranteed to win at the Olympics. I think Cho Sim really could do some damage. She could get the gold medal. Okay, let's move on now to a new section. It's Toshiki Senpai Yamamoto versus Clarence Kennedy. I don't know what it is. Harry Potter, something like that. So there's a little battle going on between these two. Toshiki, a while ago, back squatted 321 kilos for PR, which is enormous, and he probably weighed, honestly, close to 100 kilos. As we've said, he had one of the biggest glow-ups that we've seen in weightlifting, 85 up to about 100 kilos. And so while stuck in quarantine somewhere on the west coast of rural Ireland, Clarence has decided that he wants to set a goal to try and beat and dethrone Toshiki as the best squatter. And they both weigh somewhere around 100 kilos. I think at most we've seen Clarence up to maybe 102, something like that. So Clarence decided to sort of extend this threat, this challenge, out into the squativerse. And so he started off with 10 sets of 3 at 270 kilos, which is, that's quite the place to start. It's like you've already gone in with the final day of week 3 of Smolov Junior as your first training session. But he hit that, amazing. Toshiki then responded 290 kilos for 5 off blocks with a little bit of a bounce. And then even more recently, 300 for 5, again, off a box. Did I say blocks? Off a box, a soft box, again, a little bit of a bounce, but unbelievable sets. We haven't seen what Clarence is going to do in return. Just sort of, in before 300, 5x5, but he's going to do something ridiculous, I'm sure. Then we saw Toshiki hit 270 kilos for hip thrusts for a set of 3. Now, I've never seen weightlifters hip thrust before, and suddenly everyone's doing it. So Toshiki, 270 for 3. Then Liu Xiaojun just out of nowhere enters and does 220 kilos for a set of 6. And then Hulk weightlifter, from Egypt, the super heavyweight, who we see hit huge lifts, 300 kilos for a set of 5. So I don't know if this is all coincidental. I don't know if there's a mass hip thrust conspiracy entering the weightlifting world. But bizarrely, I've never seen hip thrusts on Instagram from weightlifters, and now we see 3 in a week. Hulk weightlifter also hit 190 kilos this week for a power clean and 2 push press, which again is ridiculous. But I will keep you all up to date with the old Toshiki Clarence battle. Now to Qatar, we have fan favourite Meso Hassona, 96 kilo weightlifter, who hit a PR in the power clean, 205 kilos. Now, the most he'd ever done before this was 200 kilos. He'd done it in competition, he'd done it in training. In fact, he may have even done 201 to beat that competition power in training. But this certainly a PR by at least 4, maybe 5 kilos. Now, of course, this wasn't hit in time for the power clean video, the heaviest power cleans of all time that I posted a couple of weeks ago. But if it had, here's how it might have ranked. It would have beaten Ilya's 210 at 105. It would have beaten Ruslan Nurdinov's 210 at 105, but it wouldn't have beaten Tian Tao's 205 at 85, which is truly ridiculous. So kind of slots in relatively nicely in that video. Next, we're going to move over to Georgia. We have the GOAT, genuinely, arguably one of the GOATs. We have Lasha Talakhadze. He has the 10th highest Sinclair of all time. He has the heaviest total of all time, heaviest snatch of all time. There are enough things that I've just said there that finish with all time for you to want to put him in the conversation of greatest ever. The only people you can really compare, I suppose you'd look at all other 9 Sinclair points ahead of him, all of those people. And then, of course, you've got Naeem Suleimanoglu, who has got the best Sinclair in the clean and jerk and the total of all time. But Lash is certainly up there, and we don't get to see enough from him. In fact, I have either just posted or will be posting next week, depending on when this goes out, another training session from Lasha Talakhadze that was never released. In fact, I don't think anyone's released it, so it'll be fun for you all to see. More 120 kilo muscle snatches, more 200 kilo snatches, more heavy clean and jerks, more heavy back squats, so that's cool. But no heavy back squats as heavy as this. Last week, Lasha posted a video, 300 kilos for a 3x3. And it looks pretty good. I mean, speed out of the hole, particularly on that first set, is remarkable. It kind of shows, I suppose, how he's able to stand up 264 just so quickly. 267 we've seen him do in training, to be fair, and again stands it up so fast. Never pushes a squat beyond 320, 325. We've seen guys like Ishiro Murakami, we see Martine, we see a few weightlifters push way beyond anything that Lasha does. But the speed with which Lasha does it, and the distance that he has to travel compared to the rest, is incredible. The work, the output is insane. And to me, this probably looks like, I feel like Lasha's not a grinder. I would say this looks right around 80%. It's fast triples at 80% of his 1RM, which probably puts his 1RM somewhere around 380 kilos. I would have thought 300. So yeah, 380 kilos. I think that makes sense. So exciting to see. Anyway, hopefully we'll be able to get some more footage out of him soon. Over now to Finland. We have the return of a legend. If you've not been involved in weightlifting for more than 2 years, you probably have no idea who this guy is. If you've not been involved properly, I mean, if you haven't been involved for a while, you probably don't know a huge amount about this guy. But 6-7 years ago, he was like the biggest thing in weightlifting alongside John North. It's Milko Tokola. He used to be an 85 kilo weightlifter. He was known for posting these pig squat training sessions, as he called them. Brutal bounce, knees of the gods, and was just the most aggressive weightlifter. Never the best, snatched like 50, 150, clean and jerk maybe 185, maybe. But he just returned out of the absolute blue with a 190 kilo clean, which I'm sure is a PR for him. I have no idea if he's going to be back into the sport, I don't know, but his passionate energy and fire was amazing. He used to faint on a daily basis, I think. Whenever he celebrated a heavy lift, he would just pass out, just absolutely wipe out. It was amazing, hysterical. He'd do in competition. They even got to the point where they would have people near him ready for the moment where, after he hit his third attempt clean and jerk and yelled and did a little hula dance thing that he would do, they'd have people there just ready to catch this man because he would pass out. And so I'm very excited to see 190 kilos from him in the clean. Whether or not he's going to do anything more than that, I don't know, but just because of who he is, it has to be mentioned. Latvia's Ritvar Suharevs once again makes a show, this time a 290 kilo back squat. And from France, Redon Manushi, just to build on the Redon Manushi hype that we've got going on at the moment, after doing 150 kilos for a snatch plus 3 hang snatches, which is pretty damn good, he then did 3 sets of 10 in the back squat at 160 kilos, and then, after all that volume, jumped up to a new PR in the back squat. Now, I told you guys a few weeks ago that his PR was 230. Some people didn't believe that because, he snatched 185 off blocks, so fair enough. If you didn't want to believe that, it doesn't make any sense. But it is true. He just hit 231. That's a new PR for him. So, it's the little gains that count. Over in Team GB, super heavyweight Emily Campbell, coached by the great Cyril Martin, just hit 170 kilos for a double in the front squat very fast, which is really exciting for Emily. She had some knee problems. She took some time off. She rested them, recovered them. rehabbed them, and so the fact that she's already back doubling 170 like nothing is very exciting. She certainly is someone who not only could or should qualify for the Olympics, and she probably will. Looking at the standings, I mean, she'll be fine. She'll probably even make the top 8 actually. She's the sort of person who, if she has a good day and if she has a good few training cycles, could medal. There is a real chance. She could be the sort of person who, if things go well over the next 6 months, ends up doing 25-65, something like that. At which point she's basically equaling the best total from Sarah Robles, and then with 2 of the 3 Chinese out of the picture, with Tatiana out of the picture, it's then sort of just Li Wenwen and I suppose Kim Kuk-Yang from North Korea, who she'd really have to dethrone. Across the pond to Canada, we have Boady Santavy, who had quite the week. 215 kilos in the clean, equals, I believe, the most we've ever seen from him. I certainly don't remember ever seeing any more. I think we may have seen 215 before. He clearly attempted a jerk, cut it out of the video, so he didn't make the jerk. Would love to have seen how it actually looked, just to get a feel for how close it is. He says he'll get it soon. He always says that, but I kind of believe that he probably will as well. So we'll look out for that. He then hit a 601 pound back squat, 273 kilos, and he moved it pretty fast. I mean, I don't think he's not going to be competing in the 321 kilo back squat race that some of the other guys in that weight class might be competing in. But then again, most of those guys won't be competing in the 190 kilo snatch race that someone like Boady could legitimately be competing in. So realistically, the snatch battle is more important right now. Moving down now to the USA, we have Kate Nye, 128 kilos for 2 front squats plus 1 jerk, which is really exciting. Easy 100 kilo snatch PR2. And just a reminder that, of course, she will be talking at the inaugural Coaches Only conference, answering your questions basically for a full hour, helping you learn what it is that you as a coach need to do, what journey you're going to go on with your athletes throughout the years. Next from the USA, we have Morgan McCoullough, who is just, truly popping off at the moment. It's ridiculous. 146 kilo PR in the snatch. Then 3 days later, 147 kilos. And then I think maybe 3 days after that, 150 kilos. So he went up by 5 kilos in a week in the snatch. He then hit 190 kilos in the clean and jerk on the same day as the snatch, which, though not a PR clean and jerk, is a PR total. And then just yesterday, I think 200 kilos in the split jerk for a PR off the block. So just ridiculous. I saw Travis, his coach, a long-time friend of Weightlifting House, say that he thinks maybe 350 in the total by, was it April, I think he said. Another 10 kilos. These things come in what's the phrase? I don't know what the phrase is, like ups and downs, that sort of thing. So who knows? This could be the end of it. This could be the beginning of it. We just don't know. But anyway, 340. Let's celebrate that whilst it's here. And then finally from the USA, Meredith Alwyn, 155 kilos for 5 sets of 4 in the back squat. Now, the reason I share this is because it kind of just shows another version of progress. We always just look at things like 5RMs, 3RMs, 1RMs. Can we beat it? Her 5RM was 155 kilos from 2 years ago. And she didn't do any more for 5, but she did do 5 4s at the same weight. And it looked great. And on her final set, it looked like she could have kept going. So that's real progress. It doesn't always have to be in RMs. It can just be in total workload at a given percentage. And then finally, moving over to Brazil, we have the big man himself, Fernando Reis. The first thing he did was a 145 kilo muscle snatch. He's really coming for the title of this muscle snatch. If he hits 150, that's going to be... that puts him up there in like top 3 muscle snatches ever on film, which will be amazing to see. And then also he posted a video yesterday, tagged me in it, and he asked the question, is this the heaviest snatch triple on video? 190 kilos for 3 off blocks. Now, here's how it ranks. Lasha, 220 for a single. Lapikov, 210 for a double. These are on video. As Fernando Reis said to me, 190 for 2 by Akayev. Supposedly Fernando's seen 180 for 5. I can't think who did that. Unless it was an old Lapikov video and he did 180 for 5, but that's insane. And so, we've been told supposedly that Andre Romano did 200 for 3 from, I think it was the hang, but it's not on video. So actually this 190 for 3 is the heaviest triple on video. Fernando's going to start pushing this, so he reckons, and I agree, he's got 200 for a double there, 210 for a single off blocks, and if he can do that, then he's got 205 from the floor. You know, you put that with a 245 to 248-ish clean and jerk, and you know that medals basically, as Fernando said to me, that medals every day of the week at the Olympics. So that's actually really exciting for him. And then finally, we'll do a very quick people's lifts. Guys, don't forget, head over to weightliftinghouse.com. We have some bars, we have some plates, we have loads of collars now, competition collars, all in stock, so you can check those out. They look absolutely amazing. Some of you may have seen the photos and videos, spent all of last week or the week before just, you know, shipping out bars and plates, which was cool. So a lot of you have got that stuff now, but we do still have some left. Also, head over to Virus International, use discount code WeightliftingHouse for 10% off. That works in the USA and all of Europe. And yeah, that's probably it for now. Okay, let's do the people's lifts. So the first is a crazy looking lift. This is from Spray.K, whose actual name I'm blanking. Hold up one second. Okay, so Tyler, last name unknown, did a pretty epic lift. He trains outside. He looks very cool when he does it. And he did a 125 kilo split clean, so like split power, and then, you know, he meets the bar in this power position, and then instead of standing up and bringing his feet to, he pulls the old Hsing-Chun 150, and he just goes straight into the bottom of an overhead squat, which is pretty crazy. I'd like to say I could do that, but I probably couldn't, so shout out to Spray.K for doing that cool 125. And that is SPRAY.K on Instagram. Next we have Luke Manda05, another friend of mine, 150 kilo PR clean. He's been doing these weekly GB online comps that have been going on, and that will continue to go on. He's actually running a 4-week cycle from the Glenn Pendlay method, which is kind of cool. He went through that and then just sort of been following that with a max out at the end of every single week and doing these competitions as he goes. And so far it's going well. So 150 kilos in the clean for Luke. And then finally we have Joey Bowser, 140 kilo jerk PR, the People's Canadian, as we call him on the podcast. Check out the Weightlifting House podcast and all additional podcasts that we do and videos and programs on Patreon. And then he hit, I think it was 176 kilos for a set of 5 in the bat squat, which again is pretty solid, beats my set of 5, beats his coach, I think, Joshua Gibson. What's Josh's best set of 5? Josh might have done 180. Yeah, so it doesn't quite beat Josh. But Josh is coaching Joey, and Joey's going to beat Josh soon, so that's exciting. So shout out to Joey Bowser as well. That's JoeyBalzer on Instagram. And that, I think, is where we're going to have to wrap this week's episode of the podcast up. Loads of Lasha Talakhadze videos either to have come out or have already come out. I can't quite remember. But guys, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Weightlifting House news show, and I will catch you all next week.